Implicit Bias Radio back on the air. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon, and we actually have a rarity here in the Mr. Lester's TSPL this week for the recording of the show. Normally, we are a crew of 4, which means there's me sitting in this chair or somebody else sitting in this chair. There's someone in the chair across from me, normally the Rustic Renegade. Tonight, it's Mr. Rene Girard, Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist. And then at the bar, somebody's having to share. Apparently, Grant Galatas was tired of sharing. Grant did not want to share the bar with anyone, which means, I'm concerned. Grant actually has an opportunity to have access to everything at the bar. Grant, how does it feel? Do you feel a little lonely at the bar up there this week?
Not really. I'm sharing it with, who's that, Heaven Hill?
Oh, yeah, you got the
Buzzard
Grain to Glass
Jones.
series up there.
Yeah, it is not lonely at all. All I need is a straw, actually. That'd be good. Nice and roomy.
Yeah, nice and roomy. And you also have up there the Implicit Bias Infinity bottle, Deep Blue, which as we start to get samples in and we continue to have great tastings at the bar, we have continued to add to Deep Blue. We had a run there where it went from about half full to, I'd say we're at like 7/8 right there. Right, Grant?
Yeah, it's well on its way. I don't know. You might have to go back through tape. I don't know if you've ever caught me actually taking a little. I don't know.
Oh, so what you're telling me is that when I walk out of the room, y'all have been passing it around?
No, during the show actually.
Oh,
I
okay.
managed to get away with it a few times. I mean, you put it right in front of me. There's going to be a little bit of tomfoolery.
Look, as you know what, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to expose myself a little bit here because of the way I think, and I don't mean that way. Caleb's not here, so we don't have to go down that bad road. Gents, Mother's Day is coming up. You want to do something really cool? Get your wife a beautiful crystal decanter. Hey, I bought you crystal. It's beautiful. What are we going to put in it? I don't know, but we've got all these bottles of whiskey with just a little bit. We can do something for us in the infinity bottle.
That's a good way to sell that.
That's the way to position it, right? It's all about how you frame it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. It's all about how you frame it. All right, so Rene, it's a pleasure to have you here back in the TSPL.
It's good to be here. I like coming here.
We enjoy having you here.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're here again this week. We will get to our cigar of the week, actually cigar of the month, a little bit later in the show. We typically do that hour 2. So for those who were wondering, if you only get hour 1 of the show in the market that you're in, go ahead, call your radio station, tell them we want more Implicit Bias. We want hour 2. But for right now, you can go find us anywhere you get podcasts. So whether it's Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whatever, you can download us there. You can also find us on our socials.
Yep.
You can find the whole podcast on YouTube. You can find us on X. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. We do our best to be readily accessible for you. So go ahead, do that. Make sure that you catch our cigar of the month. You never know when it's going to pop up on a reel on socials or anything like that. But instead, we're going to go ahead and start off. Well, I need to introduce because I keep forgetting because he's gotten quiet. He's not tasting for Lent, and he's got some godforsaken hat on that's flat brim. I don't know. Walker Griffon, who is on his phone as I surprise him.
It's his gangsta look.
It's his gangsta look. So, Walker, you are trying to maybe do a cleanse for Lent. Is that what this is?
Yeah, I would say so.
Is this a physical cleanse, a spiritual cleanse, a liver cleanse? What is it?
I would say physical.
I was thinking more liver.
Yeah, I was thinking it was probably his liver too, because I've heard some stories about him, New Year's, Mardi Gras. I think Mardi Gras is kind of what sealed the deal for him here. That just saying.
It's a good time to start.
It is a good time to start. So, Walker, it is good to have you back. Glad that you're here. You were awfully tired this today when I walked into the studio. What the heck is up with that? You're like 22 years old. You can't be tired.
Well, yes, I can. A nap would have been nice, but I didn't take one.
A nap would have been nice. I will give you credit. Walker is on his way to being one of those hardest working men in show business. Walker's got his own show. Walker produces another show in the morning, and then he does this when we record on Thursday evenings, usually during the week. So we appreciate what you do, Walker. Cheers to you. All right, so let's jump into our weekly whiskey tasting. We have Horse Soldier. Now, we did the cask strength Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey last week. This version of Horse Soldier, which, Renee, I believe you said as you have taken over the Whiskey Tasting Journal duties here in the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast layer, the TSPL for the uninitiated. This one is 87 proof,
Yes.
distilled in Ohio, bottled in Kentucky.
Yes.
Is that what it says? Okay. So that's a unique
So what I
scenario
want to
right
know
there.
is how they distilled it in Ohio, then how did they get it to Kentucky without the bottle?
Oh, that's real easy.
They put it in a rail car and moved it.
They might have put it in a rail car. I mean, let's be brutally honest. There are brands, and actually Stoli, who owns a lot of different companies, also happened to buy and purchase Bayou Rum in Lacassine. But what was really interesting was Stoli, who owns Kentucky Owl, would distill Kentucky Owl, age it in Kentucky, ship it to Lacassine, Louisiana, and have it bottled here.
Yeah.
Just outside of Lafayette,
I guess-
Louisiana, which is just, to me, insane. That extra transportation cost.
Yeah, but you look at it, if you have a bottling line that's sitting there doing nothing, you got equipment not doing anything, let's use it.
Yeah.
So I guess you either load it on a rail car or in a truck and go.
I wonder if that affects the aging process. I mean, because we know from Jefferson's Ocean, they actually put it on a ship and bring it to different climates. And
Yeah, but they leave
it's
those in barrels.
Yeah,
They leave it in a barrel
you think
to do that.
But Renee, I mean, they could leave it in a barrel and put it on a rail car.
I guess.
Right.
I mean,
guess
it can be
so.
done.
Yeah.
And the
I guess.
question then becomes, number one, does it pick up any additional flavor notes
The agitation in
from the
barrel.
agitation in the barrel? How much did they lose?
it becomes well traveled.
It does. It becomes a well-traveled whiskey. So let's start with this Horse Soldier, and this is just their bourbon. This is their 87 proof straight bourbon whiskey, and I believe it's a straight bourbon whiskey.
Yep.
Okay, it is. Thank you, Renee. I
Yep.
appreciate you giving me that clarification. So let's start at the bar. Grant, what do you think of this one?
Well, you kind of hit it on the head before we got on air. It's 87 proof, so it's a pleasant little drink. It really it's an evening starter basically.
Yeah.
On the nose right off the bat, a lot of sweet, just caramel and honey and vanilla and which I normally like. But over the years, over the 5 years of the show, like we've talked about, I like it a little bit stronger. So this is an evening starter, wonderful taste, nice and sweet, and pleasant.
I'm with you that I get a ton of sweet. Like I was actually thinking as I tasted this to me is probably a very, very high corn mash bill because you get so much sweet on it. And as bourbon, remember, it's got to be 51% corn on the mash bill, one of the criteria to be classified as bourbon in the U.S. But I just couldn't help but wonder, man, does this go to 75, 80, maybe even higher because of the sweetness?
I'm thinking so.
So Renee,
I think it's a higher corn, and the age to be a bourbon, you got to have it a minimum of 2 years, and on the bottle it says aged a minimum of 2 years.
this is probably a blend. I mean,
Yes.
this is going to be a blend of lots of different whiskeys where they're shooting for a very particular flavor profile and consistency on that
I
profile.
would put this, because of the way the bottle is labeled, the flavors I'm getting at, I would think this is a budget whiskey. This is a budget beginner whiskey. Now,
So-
it's a fancy bottle, but the printing on the bottle and the quality of the liquid,
So go ahead, Grant.
It's perfect. I said it's a good evening starter, but for someone just getting into tasting whiskey, this is a real nice break-in. It's just real soft.
To your point, I don't know that, and Renee, I think the terminology you used was a budget whiskey.
yeah.
I don't know that this is a budget bourbon because what I will say is I get heavy apricot on this. I get that vanilla. I get that almost that stone fruit almost on it. Notes and hints of caramel towards the back. The finish isn't overly long, but it's 87 proof. I'm not expecting it to have a lot of edge or a lot of spice to it. I get almost no spice. This drinks so incredibly easily that I'm actually kind of shocked that it's 80 proof. I might have thought it was even less.
Yeah.
But the
Well,
122,
it's 87, which is close to 90.
but the 122 from last week that we had also drank very easily for 122 proof. So I'm starting to wonder, are these just characteristics of what is being distilled?
Yeah.
What I really love about these, and one of the reasons that I am willing to step out of the norm for a lot of the Horse Soldier whiskeys, the story behind it is just so cool. It's a veteran-owned whiskey. And for those who have watched this show, who've listened to this show over the last 4 or 5 years, you know that we have not given the highest ratings to veteran-owned whiskeys. We just haven't. But this one, to me, as far as veteran-owned goes, not even close. These two labels I've had are the best. That's number one. Number two, the flavor profile on this just seems to be on point with what you would expect in a good bourbon whiskey. And I'm going to say it. I don't know if either of you will pick it up, but I'm going to tell you what this bottle reminds me of. This bottle, when I tasted it, I thought, this tastes to me a lot like straight Buffalo Trace whiskey. Maybe not as caramelly, if I can make up a word.
Caramely.
Maybe not quite that deep of a caramel flavor, but the notes were there. It's on that road. It's that direction. And it is as easy of a drink as Buffalo Trace. And that, to me, hands down, without a doubt, it's that easy of a drink.
And I can see that. I would go a little step further. I would say a thin Buffalo Trace.
Maybe that's a good way to think of it. It's a little thinner.
It's a little watery. The flavors don't pop as much as on Buffalo Trace. But yeah, I can see it being a thin Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, you could almost say and go the reverse of that, which is if you concentrated these flavors just a little bit more, you'd have Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, I would. I could go with that.
That's where I land with this one.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not too familiar with Buffalo Trace by itself, tasting it like this, because usually Buffalo Trace, I'll throw it into an old fashioned, which would actually work with this as well.
I think it would work very well with this.
It's already sweet.
I am a fan of less sweet, though, in a Buffalo Trace, more liquor forward in a Buffalo Trace. In an old fashioned, I like a little more liquor forward old fashioned or spirit forward old fashioned. So for me, I like something with a little more proof and a little more bite to it for an old fashioned to offset the sweet. But this would make one of those old fashions that almost goes down like candy, if you know what I mean. Maybe a little too easy.
Yeah.
Because it would just be, and I know this is going to sound crazy, over smooth in an old fashioned.
Yeah, because you don't have the bite with this whiskey. It doesn't have that high alcohol, a lot of flavor. See, I'm finding, less flavor. So yeah, I could see that the old fashioned would be very, very smooth.
But it doesn't even have that rye spice to it.
No.
So you wouldn't get that spicy portion of an old fashioned on the palate.
Right.
But it would absolutely give you an old fashioned that you could sit down and have one or more or 9 and be all right.
Yeah, you'd get good at making old fashions using this stuff because you would make a lot of them.
I agree.
Yeah.
Just happened to glance at the back of the bottle. You see the backstory behind Horse Soldier?
Yes.
Horse Soldier?
Yep. Mounted division in the United States military.
In Afghanistan.
Back to
after
Afghanistan.
9/11. Yeah.
Which is really, really
Green
cool.
Berets, actually. So that's
And it's one of the reasons why I love, and I said the story of this. It's a great story, Grant.
Oh, yeah.
And to be fair, that's a really good looking bottle sitting on your bar.
Oh, it's a pretty bottle.
It's a beautiful bottle sitting on the bar. The liquid that's in this is going to be one of those that, look, if I was served this at a party, if somebody said, hey, here's a glass of whiskey, I'd taste it. I'd be like, oh, this is good stuff. What is this? I'd want to know because I'd be interested. Even though, as a self-proclaimed proof hound, we typically like things, especially me here in the TSPL this week. If it's 115 or better, you're in my wheelhouse. This, we're sitting now all of a sudden looking at it and going 87. Yeah, I would absolutely sit there and sip this all night socially. Have a great night at somebody else's party. I would serve this to somebody who says, hey, I'm new to whiskey. I see you've got a big bar. What do you recommend? I'm not going to try and break somebody in on a 128
No.
with
Well,
regards to proof.
Right. Yeah, it just overpowers them.
But this they would sip, they would enjoy, and I could see someone starting their bourbon journey, their whiskey journey on something like this. So Walker is not tasting. He is not taking part in the show. He's taken his toys and gone home like the 9-year-old that he is. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the bar. What, Walker? You making a face? Because I see the way Grant looked at me.
Kudos though, Walker. That's a good show of willpower not to do that. Because I gave it up for Lent too, but I lasted 2 weeks? Just kidding. All I gave up for Lent was insulting everyone other than Democrats. So tonight's show should be a challenge. This is definitely a green for me.
Okay.
The lower proof again, and just its pleasant nature, and it's kind of a beginner's intro, so it lacks the wow factor for sure, but it's got a great flavor profile. Hits all my notes again with caramel, vanilla, and honey, and can't get the apricots out of it like you did, but it's just a wonderful green. For
Easy drinker.
me. Right.
I agree with you 100%.
We doing what would you pay? Or
No, we're doing what would you pay as well. Yeah, I was just about to ask. So the what would you pay for the what would you pay championship belt chain? For those who are not accustomed to this, you haven't heard it on the show, here's how this works. We have the what would you pay championship belt chain, which Grant is going to jingle in front of the microphone so people can see on camera and you can listen on the radio. And whoever is closest to the price just gets to wear the belt. So Grant, what would you pay for this Horse Soldier straight bourbon whiskey?
Well, like Renee said, minimum of 2 years. We didn't get a good age profile on this thing, and it's lower proof, really good taste. I'm going to say straight at $50.
$50. All right, Renee, where do you rate this, and what would you pay?
This one, I think I'm going to go a yellow on.
Okay.
'Cause I wouldn't buy it, but I'll drink it. I am.
Yeah, you'll have
somebody
more,
else?
is my guess.
Yeah, somebody
You're
else?
already on your second or third pour.
No, second.
Okay.
But they're short pours. Unlike the original short pour, mine really are short pours. This one, I'm going to put about 55.
55. Okay. I'm going to rate this a green. I would buy this. I would absolutely have this on the bar. Grant, like you and I were discussing, I would make old fashions out of this. I would sip it neat. I would make sure that if guests aren't maybe ready for what, is affectionately called gasoline on the show, where we are approaching hazmat status, 140 proof.
Rocket fuel is
Rocket
what,
fuel.
what I call it.
Rocket fuel. No, I would serve this to someone who's just isn't quite maybe ready for the rocket fuel. So it's absolutely a green by a 2-3 split. Renee again squirrels. And for the what would you pay championship belt chain, Grant, you get to wear it. This is $40.39 at our weekly whiskey partners here in Lafayette. So you can go ahead, don the what would you pay championship belt chain, and get ready, because the problems of the world, I'm going to start humming them around the TSPL here in just a few minutes when we come back right here on Implicit Bias Radio.